when a little girl in a wheelchair insisted on meeting the most dangerous dog in the shelter. No one believed it was a good idea. Shelter staff warned her to stay away from the aggressive dog, but she ignored all the warnings. The shelter staff held their breath, expecting disaster as she approached the dog. But instead of biting, the dog did something no one could have imagined. What happened next stunned the entire shelter and became a story that would melt hearts around the world. Titan had been at the shelter longer than any other dog, a massive German shepherd, with a thick black saddle and eyes the color of burnt amber. He was as striking as he was feared. On the intake form, someone had scrolled aggressive used caution in thick red marker. Every morning the volunteers approached his kennel with quiet dread. He would stand, rigid, teeth bared, hackles spiked in a bristling line down his spine. No matter how soft their voices or how tempting the treats, Titan never let his guard down. "He's just too far gone," one staff member murmured as she filled his water bowl. Some dogs never get over what happened to them. No one knew exactly what that was. Titan had been picked up, wandering the outskirts of town, filthy and gaunt, a length of frayed rope still hanging from his collar. The animal control officer said he'd growled the entire ride back. In the months since, Titan had never wagged his tail or leaned against the wire for comfort the way other dogs did. Instead, he paced back and forth, hour after hour, as if searching for something he couldn't name. Sometimes, when the shelter grew quiet in the evening, he would throw back his head and howl, a deep echoing sound that made even the most seasoned volunteers ache with pity. Most people had stopped believing Titan could ever be saved. But that was before the little girl in the wheelchair came to visit. The bell over the shelter's front door jingled as Emily's mother pushed her wheelchair inside. Emily's hands rested neatly in her lap, her long brown hair pulled back with a pink ribbon that matched the wheels of her chair. She looked around with wide eyes, taking in the rows of kennels and the hopeful faces behind the bars. "Are you sure about this?" her mother asked gently. Emily nodded. "I just want to see them," she said, her voice soft but steady. The receptionist smiled kindly. "We'd love for you to meet some of our dog," she said, though her gaze flickered nervously toward the far end of the kennels where Titan's cage sat in shadow. As they moved slowly down the aisle, volunteers opened kennel doors to let calmer dogs greet Emily. A golden retriever licked her hand, and a beagle wagged his whole body with excitement. Emily giggled, but every so often her eyes drifted toward the cage. No one approached. When they reached Titan's kennel, the shelter manager stepped forward quickly. "Sweetheart, maybe we should skip this one," she said, her tone gentle but firm. "He doesn't like visitors." Emily turned her head in the direction of the deep low growl rumbling through the bars. She couldn't see Titan's warning snarl, but she could hear the pain behind it. "I want to meet him," she whispered. Her mother hesitated. "Emily, please." The volunteers exchanged uneasy glances. In all the months Titan had been here, no one had dared come this close, but something in Emily's quiet insistence made them step aside. Her mother swallowed her fear and wheeled her daughter forward until the metal footrests were just inches from Titan's cage. Titan's growl deepened as Emily approached. His muscles coiled tight beneath his ragged coat. Every inch of him braced to defend the tiny scrap of territory he'd claimed as his own. His amber eyes locked onto the wheels of her chair, following each slow rotation with suspicion. "Easy," Emily whispered, though no one could tell if she was talking to him or herself. She rested her hands on the arms of her chair and tilted her head, listening. The kennel seemed to hum with Titan's low warning rumble. Her mother hovered just behind, her heart pounding so loudly she was sure everyone could hear it. "Emily, maybe we should." "No," Emily said softly. "He's just scared." No one dared argue. She took a deep breath and began to talk, her voice a trembling threat of calm in the charged air. "Hi," she said. "My name is Emily. I know you don't want me here." Titan's ears flicked forward, then back again. He didn't move any closer, but the growl faded to a weary whine. "I didn't want to be here either," she continued, blinking fast to keep her own tears back. "When I got hurt, I thought I'd never feel happy again." Titan's gaze flicked up to her face as though trying to read the words he couldn't understand. "I know what it's like," Emily whispered, "to lose everything." For the first time, Titan stopped pacing. Slowly he lowered his head to the floor, resting it on his front paws. His breathing slowed. The tension in his shoulders began to ease. The volunteers exchanged looks of disbelief. No one had ever seen Titan do anything but snarl or pace. But now he was listening, and maybe, just maybe, he was hoping. For a moment, no one moved. Even the other dogs seemed to sense something sacred was happening. Emily felt the heat of Titan's breath through the bars as she slowly lifted her hand. Her mother inhaled sharply, but Emily didn't hesitate. She reached forward until her fingers brushed cold steel. On the other side, Titan's eyes followed her hand, wide and uncertain. "It's okay," she whispered, voice steady. "I'm not going to hurt you." The big shepherd flinched at first, pulling back just enough that she felt a sting of doubt. Maybe this was too much to ask. Broken dog learning taught rust a broken girl. But then, with an almost hesitant slowness, Titan inched forward again. His nose touched her fingertips, warm and damp. Emily's breath caught in her throat. She turned her palm up, inviting, and waited. Titan pressed the side of his muzzle into her hand and let out a sigh so low it was almost a groan. His eyes fluttered closed, and the last of the tension melted out of his massive frame. A volunteer clapped a hand over her mouth to keep from sobbing out loud. The shelter manager wiped at her eyes, shaking her head in disbelief. Emily gently moved her hand along Titan's cheek, feeling the coarse fur and the thin scars beneath it. "You're not a bad dog," she whispered. "You're just sad." When Titan finally opened his eyes, they weren't the eyes of a monster anymore. They were tired and full of something that looked like hope. With her free hand, Emily reached down and brushed her lap. "Come here," she murmured, and for the first time since he'd arrived at the shelter, Titan crawled forward until his great head rested in the crook of her arm. The entire shelter seemed to exhale. At once, volunteers exchanged glances, tears brimming in their eyes. Some turned away, unable to watch without breaking. Emily's mother knelt beside her, a trembling hand pressed to her heart. She had never seen her daughter smile like that since the accident. It was small, but it was real. A fragile beam of light through all the darkness they'd carried. Titan's massive body trembled as he leaned more fully into Emily's lap. The growling, pacing creature was gone, replaced by a dog who looked, if only for this moment, like he belonged to someone again. A volunteer finally found her voice. "He's never let anyone touch him," she whispered. "Not once." Emily's hand moved slowly along Titan's neck, feeling the thrum of his heartbeat under her palm. She rested her cheek against his head, her own tears falling silently into his fur. "You waited for someone to love you," she murmured, her voice breaking. "And I waited too." Titan let out a long sigh and closed his eyes, the weight of his sorrow and fear slipping away. Around them, the shelter staff quietly stepped back, giving them space. That afternoon, when Emily's mother signed the first adoption papers, no one questioned it. There was no cautionary talk of dangerous dogs or special requirements. There was only a quiet certainty that something unexplainable had happened in that kennel. Weeks later, Titan walked beside Emily's wheelchair down the sidewalk of their neighborhood, matching her slow pace with every step. Neighbors watched with wet eyes as the little girl and her protector passed by. And in that small town, everyone agreed. The day Titan met Emily was the day they both came back to life. If you were moved by this incredible story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Stay with us for more heartwarming and unbelievable stories.